And we're back on Southern Indiana Now. Kelly Trask with you, and we have a special show lined up for you today. And we've got a lot of special guests, including Don Wettrick for Startedup Foundation, but that's part of Hoosier Good News segment. For Hoosier Hustle, we have Jordan Rehart talking about the Reno Gang, and he's a Reno Gang enthusiast. And also we have the Corydon Historic Site, part of our Hoosier Homestead. And for Hoosier Happenings, we are going to feature Jordan Rehart again from Jackson County Visitor Center. And we are so looking forward to our next guest, Denver Bays with Corydon Historic Site. Super happy to have Denver with us today. And we're talking about Corydon, Indiana, which is just northwest of Louisville, just to kind of give you a little perspective. But if you haven't been there yet, Denver, they're missing out, right?
Yes. So Corydon is one of the oldest cities, at least in Indiana. I say city, we're town.
Yeah.
Founded in 1808, and we were the first state capital, which a lot of people don't know, but it's okay. Oh. I feel like since I was born and raised there, that's the reason I know.
I love that. So a lot of stuff's happened in Corydon. So let's talk briefly about some of the history and highlights and things that you'd like to share.
Yeah. So as I said, we were founded in 1808. William Henry Harrison is credited to giving the town its name after a character from a song called the Pastoral Elegy. By the way, it's a dead mythical shepherd boy. So interesting. And hopefully the most morbid story.
Fun fact. You know?
But William Henry Harrison founded the town, and then shortly thereafter, we became the second territorial capital, and then the first state capital in 1816, of course, before the capital moved to Indianapolis in 1825.
All right, so let's talk about Corydon's role as the first state capital in Indiana.
So really the stories and really the history tell us that Indiana was very much a divisive state when it came to beliefs. Vincennes was actually the first territorial capital.
Okay.
And they were pro-slavery and anti-statehood. And Corydon was the opposite.
Yeah.
So this is one of the reasons why Corydon was the first territorial capital.
Okay.
And then, of course, we become the second territorial capital. First state capital.
That's fascinating. All right, fantastic. Tell me about some of the major events that happened during Indiana's territorial time in the beginning of Corydon.
So Corydon's boundaries, the downtown is basically what the size was of the city during the capital period. We had a lot of taverns and therefore a lot of people traveling through Corydon. Believe it or not, it was a hub. Even though today it's kind of...
It's a hub. It's still a hub.
Yes. And so basically, Corydon kind of grew from that point, and it was a political powerhouse in the terms that we are the head of what's called the Jennings faction, which is that pro-statehood, anti-slavery sect of Indiana government.
I love that. So how long have you been part of the historic site there?
So I've actually been there since August of 2016, so I was there for half of the bicentennial kickoff.
Yeah, I love it. So let's go back in time a little bit and talk about how did the Civil War shape in that time frame shape the town?
So a lot of people don't realize we did have a battle. It was called the Battle of Corydon. Granted, the battle was only about 30 minutes.
That still counts.
It still counts.
Yeah.
Technically, it is considered an official battle, not a skirmish.
Okay.
We had Union-trained home guard.
Hold on a second. What's the difference between a skirmish and a battle? Like, is it length of time?
I don't
We're
think
just going to do a quick deep dive here.
It's basically it's determined on whether or not the federal government recognizes it as.
Oh, I see.
But also, we had the benefit. We had a home guard, but they were trained by the Union Army and had a Union commander. It's not just citizens who have rifles and are fighting.
Yeah.
Which is more aligned with a skirmish.
Okay.
So we did have 400 trained home guard that were fighting against 2,000 well-trained Confederate cavalry. Oh. The battle was, again, 30 minutes. It did end in a Confederate victory. And we were under Confederate control. And unfortunately, the impact on the citizens is that a lot of people did have their property burned or seized by the Confederates.
That's terrible. Yeah.
So.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I think with that, based on a lot of history there, tell me about some of the educational programs that you offer to give kids and families kind of a look back into how Corydon got its wings.
So our biggest contribution to education is school groups. We have thousands of fourth graders. Indiana history is kind of the curriculum. So we get those during the fall and the spring is our big time of year. And those are free to the students and the teachers. And we do have chaperones that, of course, do that. Yeah. So we're busy throughout those months. But we offer homeschool programs as well. at our
Yeah,
site.
and that's grown for sure. Let's talk about this is kind of like, let's peel back the layers a little bit. We've kind of got the good stuff people need to know. Let's talk about the fun surprises or history or lore that kind of lurks inside the walls of Corydon, stories you've heard or not sure if it's true, but we're still telling them today. Let's talk about that.
So there's lots of tall tales.
We like tall tales.
Supposedly, during the Battle of Corydon, there was a guy who was shot in front of the Capitol building, which is the building, one of the buildings
Right
we
there
interpret.
on the square, yeah.
I have not found any records to state that it's true or false, but that's one of the stories. But also, there's a story that we supposedly close by near Mockport, in Harrison County, which is still our county. There is a headless ghost that runs around.
Okay.
But, I haven't seen anything.
Haven't seen a headless ghost.
Yeah.
No. That's too bad. Or too good. I don't know. Depends on if you're the headless ghost or not.
Yeah.
All right. So let's, there's some neat tours too in the fall. People kind of can get behind the scenes and the nighttime stories of Corydon. I know I've done one of those, so it was super fun.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So, Real Haunted Happenings, Dark Corners of Corydon is one of our biggest programs. It's almost always a sellout. I think we're going to add even more weekends. Generally, it is one weekend, but we're going to add some more. And it just not only highlights potential supernatural happenings at our site, but also the whole town.
All right.
So it is a lot of fun. And since you've seen it,
Yes.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was. It was great. I did it several years ago and with some friends, so it was just super fun just to walk through the buildings and hear the stories and realize that if those walls could talk. And I love the history of Southern Indiana and all of our towns and things. So fantastic. What, anything else you'd like to share about the Corydon Historic Site or anything along those lines?
So we do a lot of programs throughout the year, and we're a part of a southeast region. So Culbertson Mansion in New Albany, as well as Lanier Mansion in Madison. Is part of our region. We all do programs throughout the year.
Okay.
We have an upcoming program, and it kind of ties in with Corydon in the Capitol. In June 13th, we're doing a constitutional convention. So I'll be dressed up in costume, and we'll talk about. Well, I'll be first person interpreting, basically writing the Constitution.
Okay.
And actually, participants will get a piece of the Constitution elm, in which that's the tree that they set underneath and finish the Constitution. Just a tiny piece, but it's still free. It comes with your...
Still counts.
Right.
Yeah, I love it. Where can they find more information, Denver, and then how can they get connected with the Corydon Historic Site?
So our website is indianastatemuseum.org, and there's a menu, and you can go to historic sites. You can find our site there. We have all of our programs that you can pre-register for, information about our site. They can also reach us via site phone, which is 812-738-4890. And we always recommend, especially during school group tours, that you call in advance to schedule tours because we may not be able to get you in.
Yeah, I love that. Do check it out, and you can connect with Denver or the staff and get some information about how you can tour Corydon and the surrounding area and find out some of the stories for yourself. We'll be back on Southern Indiana Now. I'm Kelly Trask.
Join me, Jay Hubbard, weekdays from 6 to 10 every morning. It's Jay's Morning Wake Up Call, blending today's greatest country hits with local news, weather, and a couple laughs. Jay's Morning Wake Up Call on 92.7 WXKU.
And we're back on Southern Indiana Now. Kelly Trask, joined by a special guest, Jordan Rehart, the man of many hats. And of course, if you've listened to the show anytime, or especially if you've been in and around Southern Indiana, you've heard the name. But today, we're going to talk with Jordan more about the Reno Gang. So we're definitely excited to have Jordan with us today. Mm-hmm. And Jordan, first of all, you are a man of many hats, and I know we've had you featured in lots of different segments, but tell us about how you became kind of an expert in the Reno Gang.
Yeah. All right, I wouldn't use the word expert, but just my position at the Jackson. There we go. An enthusiast, maybe.
Yes, so, that's good too.
Just my position at the Jackson County Visitor Center. I'm the public relations manager. So when people walk into our office to tour it, sometimes they want you to walk them through things. One of the pieces that we have in our office is a display that walks them through the history of the Reno Gang, and it is a compelling story. So it's kind of sparked my interest over the years just from just knowing about it growing up here, but also working professionally in Jackson County, researching that out to share with the visitors. We also do school tours at the visitor center. And, I've had kindergartners through, middle school students there. And you kind of have to share a story that's kind of interesting to them. And the Reno Gang always does it for them.
It always does it. So if someone just tuning in who may never heard of the Reno Gang, they're like, who are these dudes? We don't even know. Tell us a little bit about the background, who they are, kind of an overview of what they did and why it's so fascinating.
Sure. So what they're actually known for is the world's first peacetime train robbery, which occurred October 6th, 1866 in Seymour, Indiana. So the Reno Gang was the Reno family. So it was led by John Reno, who was the second son, Frank Reno, oldest son, and then the younger ones, William and Simeon. They had another brother, Clint, who was not involved in the gang. They had a sister, Laura, that was not involved in the gang either. So they kind of got their start in the 1850s. They grew up in Rockford, which is now a Seymour address, right? But it used to be its own separate community and predated Seymour. And that's where they grew up. When in the 1850s, they started, doing arsons, maybe some murders, and then robbery.
Some murders, no big deal.
Robberies, stuff like that. When the Civil War came about, they did something called jumping bounty, which is they would sign up for service in the Civil War, collect the bounty payment that the government would pay, and then never show up for service. And they do that under multiple aliases. They returned, to Rockford and started the gang. And at that time, in the 1850s, Seymour had started by Meady Shields and got the railroad to go through Seymour. And people left Rockford for Seymour because of economic opportunity. Kind of funny because it's really, just right here. But back in those days, you're riding by horses long distance.
Yeah, that was a long way.
So land became really, really cheap, and it was really empty. Wilkinson Reno, the Reno Gang's father, bought up all those lots. And so that was the perfect place for them to kind of have a lot of space and hide out. In fact, Wilkinson Reno had so much property, he was the highest paid property taxpayer in Jackson County one time. So they stuck out their gang there. And like I said, October 6th, 1866, John Reno and a guy by the name of Frank Sparks, who was a member of the gang, boarded a train in Seymour about 7 o'clock at night, let it go down a quarter mile down the railroad track, stopped, got the train to stop, and they went into the messenger car where all the ticket fare money was and threw out 2 safes. Other members of the gang rode up on horseback, got those 2 safes. One of them wouldn't open, so they just left it. But the other one had between $12,000 and $18,000, and that was the world's first peacetime train robbery.
All right, so that's pretty significant, especially because there's a lot of lore around that unopened safe.
That's right.
So let's learn a little bit about that. Tell us, are people still looking for it today?
Yeah, people kind of joke about that. Parts Unknown, or the one show from Discovery Channel recently did an episode. So they came and they found old coins around their old homestead and stuff like that. Actually, I think the Reno gold that people look for actually comes from their third train robbery. So one thing that people don't, this is a fun fact, a lot of people don't realize, they committed the world's first train robbery. They actually committed the world's first 3. And the third one was their last one.
And I bet they're mad they're not getting all the credit right now.
Yeah. So the third and final one was in May of 1868 in an area called Marshfield in Scott County. And that one was one that kind of projected them to really get attention because they got between $96,000 and $175,000. Great deal amount of money today, but crazy amount of money back then. And they say that the story had went that they had buried that money to hide it. Okay. So that's what people are actually looking for.
Oh, all right.
But maybe too, there's probably something out there where what happened to that safe that just lay there after that first one.
So for treasure hunters out there, Jordan, are you going to give them any thoughts as to where you think it might be?
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. They're actually, if you watch that episode on Discovery Channel, there is a cave in Clark County that perhaps could have been there. But I always tell kids who are at the visitor center for a field trip, don't dig in your parents' backyard.
Yeah, probably not going to find it.
Don't want people mad at us, right?
No, we don't.
Anyway.
Nor do you want to say, hey, it's X, Y, Z, and someone just heads there, and you're like, I don't know. All right, fantastic.
So one neat thing, too, is that we kind of can, just based on stories being passed down, we can kind of pinpoint in some realm of where the first train robbery occurred. So there's old expired railroad tracks right outside the Visitor Center building. We're at 100 North Broadway Street in Seymour, old restored train depot. And you could still see the railroad ties are still in the grass. If you stand there and you look east, it's about a quarter mile down the track. So it's behind what used to be the old Indiana State Police Post.
Okay.
It's either between there and the Burkhart overpass.
Okay.
So that's kind of where the
zone of
Reno
the first
Gang,
one.
well, the first one happened.
Okay. So just quick thing. Why'd they stop after 3?
Well, so like I said, that got a lot of people's attention.
Yeah, imagine. Yeah.
The Adams Express Company was really frustrated because they were losing all this money. The federal government was very frustrated because all this was happening. People locally were frustrated because Seymour became known as a dangerous town. So the U.S. government and the Adams Express Company hired a guy by the name of Alan Pinkerton. Detective agency, police agency.
I feel like that could be like a show on
Yeah,
Netflix at this point.
yeah. He invented the undercover sting operation. And
Okay.
when he did that, maybe one of the early times that he used that theory was against the Reno Gang. So hired Pinkerton. They had, I believe the Pinkerton agents had kind of befriended a bartender in a local saloon that the Reno Gang hung out at called the Raider House, which was over on Indianapolis Avenue. And he would inform Pinkerton of what their next plans were. And they were planning on robbing a train that was going towards Brownstown. And what happened was Pinkerton had contacted the engineer of that train or the messenger car guy and said, hey, why don't you approach the Reno Gang and work with them to stop this train? So the guy did that and said, I'll stop the train, let you guys rob it, no problems, just give me a cut of it, and move on. And what actually ended up happening, they stopped that train and the Pinkerton agents came up and there was a big shootout and the Reno Gang was finally arrested. So obviously for anybody who knows the Reno Gang, this story ends with some hangings by a vigilante committee.
Does not have a good ending.
So members of the gang were being transported to jail. And on the edge of Seymour, what's now known as the Crossing, used to be Hangman's Crossing. There were some beech trees there, and the vigilante committee stopped the train on 2 occasions in July of 1868 and hung between the 2 days 8 members of the gang, none of which were the Reno brothers. Wow. And so law enforcement moved the Reno brothers and a guy by the name of Charles Anderson, a gang member, down to a jail cell in New Albany. The vigilante committee went down there, overtook the jail, actually shot the sheriff.
Oh, wow.
And overtook the jail and then hung.
Sounds like a sequel.
right. And hung Frank Reno, Simeon Reno, William Reno, and Charles Anderson from the second story of that jail. John Reno, leader of the gang, was serving a jail time in Gallatin, Missouri. 10-year sentence. And actually was that's when his brothers were hung and killed. He served another 10 years and came back to Seymour after that and was found not guilty on a counterfeiting charge over in Brownstown and actually lived out his time peacefully in Seymour until he died in 1895.
That's crazy.
So that's kind of how it kind of caught up with him.
There's so much lore in and around Southern Indiana about where the treasure could be. People still talk about it. I actually heard that it was melted down and made into different pieces and given away to family members.
Oh, I mean, I've heard that one. That's interesting.
Doorknobs, different things like that. I'm like, well, that's hidden in plain sight. That could be a thing.
Yeah, and there is an area. I think one question we were going to talk about too is landmarks. So there's some interesting things around. If you go to Chateau de Pique Winery, the edge of their parking lot, there's a hill. And you walk up there and you'll see the kind of the foundation of a building that still remains, and that was their homestead.
Okay.
Other parts, their graves where they once were buried, maybe, are in the city cemetery. But people were very upset that their loved ones were buried in the same cemetery as the hated Reno Gang. So I think they were actually relocated in the city cemetery. But the 3 graves for Frank, Simeon, and William are there in a little gate. You can see that. Okay. And then I mentioned Charles Anderson, member of the gang who was hung in the New Albany jail. We have a jail cell that he was held in New Albany at the visitor center that we can
Okay.
take you to. Kids always love that one.
I did not know there's a jail sale at the visitor center.
There is a jail
wow.
sale.
So if
It look-
you act up,
It looks like a shed. It kind
Okay.
of looks like a shed,
Oh,
but
you know.
you go out there and it's a jail. It's got the old, keyhole, and it's got
Wow.
like the old, ring
Fun
to open it up.
facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So come by and see it.
Yeah.
We'll be more than happy to open it up, let you take a look around. So
all right. So if you'd like to get more information about the Reno brothers, the history, or maybe where you can find the treasure, how can they reach you, Jordan?
just visit us at 100 North Broadway Street in Seymour. Give us a call, 812-524-1914. Log on to jacksoncountyin.com, and we can read a little bit about the Reno Gang, but just want to come by and visit us, we'd love to tell you more.
All right. We'll be back on Southern Indiana Now.
Wherever you go, our stations have your music, local news, local sports, and local weather covered. 95.3 WUME brings you today's best hits, along with Paoli sports, local news, and weather. 98.7 WSCZ plays the timeless favorites from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, as well as local weather and Orleans high school sports. And 96.9 WKLO keeps it country with all your favorite classic country hits, plus Corydon and North Harrison high school sports, as well as local news and weather. Your soundtrack for Southern Indiana is found on 95.3 WUME, 98.7 WSEZ, and 96.9 WKLO.
And we're back on Southern Indiana Now. Jordan Rehart with us, joining us from the Jackson County Visitor Center, talking about things happening in and around Southern Indiana. Of course, he's featured on our Hoosier Happening segment. Thank you so much for joining us, Jordan. Lots of things happening in Southern Indiana. Let's talk about it. What can people plan on doing, and what do they need to be taking with them?
Yeah, this is kind of the time of year where our area really kind of scales up with the events. So we're going to first talk about tomorrow night, Seymour City Jam, the very first City Jam of the year. That's a popular free summer concert series in Seymour. That's at 6:30 p.m. Thursday, May 15th at Crossroads Community Park in Seymour. Blackwater Revival, it's a Doobie Brothers tribute band going to be
awesome.
kicking things off. And there's going to be food truck sponsors that are going to be open up at 6 o'clock. So that's always a fun summer concert series. That's the third Thursday each month, May through September.
That was my next question. If they miss tomorrow night,
Yeah.
where else? There'll be lots of concerts throughout the summer, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So the City Jam in June, I won't get into all the dates, but the acts are going to be Ain't That America, John Mellencamp tribute band. There's going to be a Toby Keith tribute band in July. Soul Express, good local Seymour band, going to be playing in August, and then it closes out Sounds of Summer with the Beach Boys tribute band. So you can find out more about that at SeymourMainStreet.org or JacksonCountyIN.com, where we maintain a calendar. Other things going on, Frühlingsfest, Knights Columbus Frühlingsfest going on, the 16th and 17th of May. That's 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. That's in the B&O parking lot, which is right behind the Knights Columbus and Seymour. That's going to have a lot of food vendors, similar to Oktoberfest. Frühlingsfest is German for, I think, Springfest or Friendsfest, something like that.
Okay.
Going to have a beer garden, going to have live music and
Well, you can't
entertainment.
have a German event without that.
That's right. Yeah, German
For
area.
sure.
Got to have all that. All kinds of great food vendors and great live music. That event is completely free to enter, so all kinds of fun there. Hen and Chicks Barn Market coming up the 16th and 17th as well. This weekend's actually a really big weekend, so it's perfect timing for Hoosier Happenings. But Hen and Chicks going on 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Friday,
okay. Yeah.
10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday. That's $5 admission. That's at the Three Bin Farm, 5602 East, 100 North.
Wow,
Look at me.
that's impressive.
Look at me. Yeah,
I'm always just like, turn left by the purple barn.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
But good point, because just take US 50 and follow the signs.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get out there.
girl directions.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So also, since we just spoke about US 50, it's also the US 50 yard
I
sales.
know, that's a huge thing.
Yeah. So
We like our deals in Southern Indiana.
that's right. So I think there's no formal hours to the US 50 yard sales, but
no.
Thursday through
If you
Sunday.
see someone open, looks like there's some stuff for sale, you stop.
Yeah, be super careful because
That's true.
it's pretty crazy. Yeah, the Southern Indiana Renaissance Fair is still going on through it's Saturdays and Sundays through let's see, the 24th and 20th through Memorial Day weekend.
Okay.
So yeah, that's going
check
on.
that out.
Southern Indiana Renaissance Fair going on through Memorial Day weekend.
Super fun. People come from all over for that.
That's right.
Yeah.
RenaissanceFair.in.com.
Yeah.
Get your tickets there. And that's a really cool event. There's a different theme each weekend, so things kind of change up. There's food out there. There's all kinds of entertainment, even jousting. If you've you know jousting.
I mean, yeah, I do.
You like horses, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
So jousting.
I've never
is cool.
jousted on one, but you know.
yeah, that's a kind of an old time thing.
I still have time.
Yeah, that's
hopefully.
right. That's right.
I might add that to my life list. I don't know. Is that a thing? Do you have media event or jousting?
Right. Maybe
I don't know.
That'll be the next episode of the podcast. But
See, Jordan and I are
right.
jousting.
Memorial Day weekend is a little bit slower event wise, but there's always live music at places.
Always something.
So and then there's some Memorial Day services that go on in Seymour. That's 11 a.m. on Monday of Memorial Day. The Brownstown one is in the afternoon on the Sunday before Memorial Day. But moving ahead to that first weekend in June is the Jackson County Antique Farm Machinery Show.
Okay.
So that is going on that Friday and Saturday. It is like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I think the admission is like $2 or something like that. This is perfect for kids because you get to see old time farm machinery equipment, old tractors. There's a tractor ride at 9 a.m. on Friday. And this year's theme, each year they have a different kind of brand that they feature. This year's John Deere. Okay. So that's really popular among a lot of people.
Country song written about that.
That's right. John Deere Green.
That's right.
Joe Diffie. Good tribute to Joe Diffie.
That's
I'm a big
right.
Joe Diffie fan. And there's also like live demonstrations going on there. There's like a flea market. There's some kids activities like different rides and stuff that go on with that. That is at the Jackson County Fairgrounds in Brownstown. So be sure to check that out. That's always a popular event as well.
All right, love it. Well, you can find out more information. You can also reach out to the Jackson County Visitor Center. But of course, you can check out any of those specific websites that Jordan mentioned, and you'll have a great start to your summer planned right here in Southern Indiana.
Join me, Jay Hubbard, weekdays from 6 to 10 every morning. It's Jay's Morning Wake Up Call, blending today's greatest country hits with local news, weather, and a couple laughs. Jay's Morning Wake Up Call on 92.7 WXKU.
And we're back on Southern Indiana now, and wanted to highlight some special people that are definitely making headway in and around the state of Indiana, and especially Southern Indiana. Of course, the Startedup Foundation, and we're with Don Wettrick, and he is the CEO of the Startedup Foundation, which is part of the Innovate Within. And Don, give us a little bit about who Startedup is and how it impacts kiddos, and what sorts of big things are happening.
Sure. Thanks for, first of all, having me on, Kelly. Appreciate it. So Startedup really started it from my classroom. I had a bizarre class called Innovation and Open Source Learning. And the driving thing was, if school didn't get in your way, what would you want to do? What would you want to accomplish? What problem would you want to solve? And the classes kind of took a really interesting trajectory. We got our students that, gosh, I had some kids that got patents. I got some students that started real things. And then we kind of noticed it was really a class about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs solve problems. Everything you've ever bought in your life solved a problem, whether it was you were bored or hungry, or you didn't, want to bend over and tie your shoes, so you bought Velcro shoes. And so the class kind of made a name for himself and ended up writing a book, and the book did better than I thought it would. And so the governor and the IDC had taken a shine to it. So they said, hey, we're thinking about this Shark Tank for high school students. And, I told them, like, I yes, but no. I said, I don't want this to be a business idea competition. I want them to be able to actually carry out and want to do the thing that they want to do. So we told them, like, the theme would be see a problem as an opportunity. If you can see problems and opportunities, you'll never run out of opportunities, because there's always going to be some problems. So they allowed me to run with it. So we've kind of grown it and scaled it now to the biggest high school pitch competition in the country. And again, we're trying to make it less about ideas and more about practicality. What problem did you identify, and how are you going to go about it? And the blessing is at the heart of it is that this is anchored by teachers. So we have a fellowship of rare teachers. We normally have 2, sometimes 3 teachers per high school, that they allow students to have time to ponder these things. And then most importantly, they open up their network. Kelly, you probably know this, but in a day and age where we talk about, well, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Factually speaking, no one knows more people than teachers. And their network, if they're the right teacher, it's usually a really trusted network. And then, my gosh, if you've taught, especially for like 10 years, a couple of hundred families, And those moms and dads and aunts and uncles and even former students have great networks. So when our students come up with something they really want to work on, that teacher knows a lot of times who to pass them off to or who to point them towards. And so that's kind of led to this whole big thing with Innovate Within. So Innovate Within is the name of our pitch competition because it's the capital IN for Indiana. But the Startedup Foundation is that's how it was anchored, is that I was just having a lot of great networked people. So really it looks like startup, and ed is a little bit in the middle of it because we're a startup mindset organization that's inside education. So Startedup is always looking for great anchor teachers to be a part of this fellowship. And again, like I was saying before, these teachers give the students time and resources to solve problems, not necessarily for a grade, but to do it for real. And that's what we do.
Yeah, I love it. So you recently just completed some regional finalists and district competitions. Let me hear a little bit about some of the winners in the past. I know when they move on from different regions, they go on to compete at state level, and then obviously in Washington, that's a pretty big deal. So let's talk about some of the past winners. And
oh man,
yeah, I know. I know I'd be hard to pick a favorite, but let's talk about that experience.
I'll sprinkle a couple on different extremes. First of all, we're so glad that Southeast Indiana is really starting to come along. It was, without a doubt, our smallest participation. Central and especially Northwest Indiana, we had thousands of kids. So we're really excited that we're starting to find the right teachers and the right schools that really want to be a part of this. Student outcomes, one of my favorites, ironically, is from Southeast Indiana. Their problem, because again, most of them start with problems. Their problem was fishing lures do not come in the right color or consistency for crappie fishing in Southern Indiana. So these two young men started a thing called SIBCO. SIB stands for Southern Indiana Bait Company. And they made and manufactured their own plastic injected worms, shad, and crawdads. They were solving a specific problem. Gosh, we've had students also design some apps. Some last year's winner, which has already made, these two young men are now living in San Francisco at age 18 because they're doing so well. But they had created an AI tool for law firms. I could get into the nitty gritty of it, but I'll just say they wrote a program. They have an AI tool for law firms. And then we've even had some students that took on social entrepreneurship on how to upcycle textile waste and how to turn it into dog toys to help their local animal shelter with sales. But this is year 8. And so when you said start to pick a favorite, it's every year. It's something like, last year's winner. This young lady was at first doing just cake pops locally. And then she started noticing that PTA and other small events started like getting her to do a lot. And then she realized that she found a hole in the home baked goods area. And so she started to work and basically sell her process and her materials to other home baked goods people and especially young people. So it's all over the place, but it's always, again, it's always solving some sort of a problem, not just a business for the sake of starting a business.
I love that. So students can start getting information and getting started in August. Don, what's the best way they can connect with their school? And if it's not yet at their school, what's a good regional or statewide resource contact that they can reach out and get the ball rolling?
Oh, man. If it's not at your school yet, if you're listening to this going, wait, is this at my daughter or son's school, at their high school? If the answer is no, first of all, you can always find us startedupfoundation.org. Sorry about the length of that. They can connect with me personally. I think the easiest way is on LinkedIn. My name is Don Wettrick, Wettrick. And if they are at a school, hit the ground running next year. Constantly be listening to people complain. Constantly be looking for problems that you think need to be solved. And, work with that teacher and, be able to come up with solutions. So startedupfoundation.org, LinkedIn, local teachers, just love to work with all of them.
All right. The point is, in Indiana, big things are happening, and we'll be back here on Southern Indiana Now. I'm Kelly Trask.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Southern Indiana Now. Make sure you can check it out online at all the places, including Spotify, Apple, iHeart, our own YouTube channel, Southern Indiana Now. And of course, you can check out our website at southernindiananow.com.